Thank you, Maisel. Well, good morning, everyone. I am Maria Ibarra, Business Services Manager overseeing the Small Business Unit here at Caltrans District 11. I'd like to welcome you all today, day 2 of our 17th Annual Procurement and Resource Fair, brought to you again virtually this year. Day 2 of the fair focuses primarily on construction and A&E, with construction being the primary topic of this morning's session and A&E for this afternoon session. So in this session, we have the pleasure of having district representatives from construction, maintenance, and labor compliance. Margie Perez, District Division Chief of Construction, will provide us an overview of the construction division here at the district, followed by Julio Reyes, Minor B Branch Chief, who will discuss the district's Minor B program. Monica Corleco, Labor Compliance Manager, will present contractors' responsibilities as they relate to labor compliance. We will then invite Maisel back out to demonstrate where to find opportunities in Contractors Corner. Now, once all of our district speakers conclude their presentations, we will invite our guest prime panelists from Hazard Construction, Granite Construction, and Skanska to come out to provide beneficial information about finding opportunities with their company, best tips and advice. So before we begin our agenda, I would like to invite Gabriel Lacero, Acting Deputy District Director of Construction and Land Surveys here at the district, to take the stage to provide some opening remarks. Welcome, Gabriel.
Opportunities to say a few words. Can you hear me? Yes. Good morning, everybody. I'm Gabriel Lacero, Acting Deputy District Director of Construction and Land Surveys. I'm excited to welcome you all to day 2 of our District 17 Annual Procurement and Resource Fair. The annual fair was originally designed to help the small business community learn about the processes and procurement opportunities the district holds to increase the utilization of small businesses in all district procurements. This year, the small business team has expanded this event not only to the communities and service-related industries, but to include construction and architectural and engineering firms as well. This current session focuses primarily on construction, although we welcome all industries in attendance. Here at Caltrans, our mission is to provide a safe and reliable transportation network that serves all people and respects the environment. We manage, develop, and maintain 50,000 miles of state highway and interstate freeway lanes. Because the scope of Caltrans' mission is far greater for Caltrans to manage alone, our department depends on private contracting partners, such as yours, to fulfill this mission and project goals. Projects such as those that involve the application of high-friction surface treatment provides a safe and reliable transportation for all Californians. Projects that require the placement of a water pollution control system contribute to our commitment to respect the environment. Our projects to replace bridge portions and place structural concrete barriers, including those that involve planting and irrigation, excavation, and slow paving, leads to the maintenance of the roads that serves the people of California. Together, we can effectively join our efforts in partnerships through projects such as the one I just mentioned and accomplishing our missions. The projects I mentioned are all active or upcoming opportunities within our district. Your attendance here today is the first step in learning. To learning about the opportunities Caltrans and its partners have to offer, and getting certified brings Caltrans one step closer to further diversifying the participations of the projects we put into our community. Once again, I thank you for joining us today and encourage you to continue attending events such as this, so together we can build an integrated, multimodal system that meets the needs and support the aspirations of all Californians. I will now hand over the floor to Maisel Mathis, who will introduce our next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. And now I would like to introduce Margie Perez, District Division Chief of Construction, to provide a brief overview of District 11's Construction Division and its processes. Welcome, Margie.
Thank you very much, Maisel. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Margie Perez, and I am the District Division Chief for Construction here in San Diego. And this morning, I'd like to go through a quick overview of our project delivery process with you. Also, go through the organization of District 11 and how it differs from some of our other districts, as well as going through a list of advertised projects that we were going to be having from now until the end of our fiscal year. Currently, we just started the second quarter of our fiscal year here in October. And so with that, Maisel, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you. I know on the slide it's a little hard to see, but hopefully let's go through and I'll walk you through this process. So when we start our project, we actually started out with our K phase, which is our project initiation phase. And it is during this phase that the scope, as well as the schedule and cost of all major projects on our state highway system are put together. And from there, we are able to move over into our zero phase. And this is where the writing of our preliminary engineering study, as well as the draft project reports, do answer the purpose and need for each of our projects, as well as gives us the opportunity to obtain the required permits, as well as the agreements that are necessary to get the project approval and the environmental documents. And then that moves us over into our phase one, which is our design phase. And it's here that the preparation of the plans, the specs, as well as the estimates for each of the projects really take us through to advertise, bid, award, as well as the approval process. We also have our two phase, which is our right-of-way phase. And it's really here that we are able to obtain our right-of-way certifications and any agreements that are necessary for our construction projects. And from that, we move into our phase three, which is our construction support, which also leads into the physical construction of each of our projects. And so that kind of gives you a quick overview of how it takes a project from initiation all the way to construction. And then the next slide will show us how District 11 is actually organized differently than some of our other districts. And really, I would like to point out the three top squares that are on that right-hand side. And that really dictates our corridors. Here in District 11, we actually have three corridors. One is the North Coast Corridor, which is headed by Alan Kossip. The second is the South Corridor and Trade Corridor, headed by Mario Orso. And then the Central Corridor, headed by Karen Jewell. Now, it is with the organization of these three corridors that does make us different than other districts, because in line with our District 11 construction divisions, as well as our design and project management, these three corridors can also take a project from initiation to construction. And so with that, let's go ahead and talk about some of the projects that are going to be advertised. And so this list of projects is from our second quarter, which takes place from October of 2022 through December of 2022. And there are 6 projects that are to be advertised for a total of $113 million. And of note of these projects, there is a $35 million project that deals with an RHMA overlay and SAMI, and it also includes broadband work on State Route 67 from just north of the San Diego River to State Route 78. There's also a $55 million concrete mainline pavement rehab project on 15 from Escondido, from the 1578 separation to just north of Deer Springs overcrossing. And then quarter 3, which is on the next slide, and I believe here this takes place from January of 2022 through March of 2022. And there are 15 projects listed for $116 million. And I believe because of the length of the projects, the total is actually on the second page. But of to note on this, in this quarter, we do have a $23 million deck rehab project on 8 at Mollison and Grossmont. as well as a $29.5 million Otay Mesa Port of Entry site prep project. And then there is also a $21 million pavement preservation project on State Route 94 in National City and Chula Vista from the 54-5 separation to the Sweetwater Road overcrossing. And then through to Q4, Mason, I think that's the Q3 slide. If you one more will bring us to Q4. Thank you very much. And that starts in April of 2022 to June of 2022. And there are 5 projects that are listed for $67 million. Of note, there is a $16 million Ox Lane project on 805 at Governor. There's also a $12 million project for bridge structure rehab in Imperial County at various locations. And the last project is a $35 million pavement rehab project on State Route 125 from El Kelton to the Route 2594 separation. And so with that, that does end the list of projects as well as my presentation. And so with that, Maisel, I guess I will turn that over to you unless there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Margie. We currently do not have any questions, but we thank you so much for that introduction and overview of the construction division.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so with that being said, I would like to now introduce our next presentation. It's going to be Julio Reyes, our branch chief for Minor B1, to talk about the Minor B program here at the district. Welcome, Julio.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Julio Reyes, and I am one of the branch chiefs for minor programs here in District 11. And so what I'd like to do today is that I would like to provide an overview of our minors program and how we work with the small business community to deliver a successful program in our district. And throughout the presentation, you're going to see the significant role that the small business community provides to our district, not just in terms of delivering our program, but also in securing the funding allocation that we need to support the improvements within our district. So with that, Alex, could I have the next slide? So what is our minors program in District 11? Well, our minors program is a project delivery program like many others we have in Caltrans. But the minor program enables Caltrans to effect solutions for less complex projects whenever there is an issue that we need to resolve right away. Usually these are maintenance related projects that are beyond the operational capacity of a regular maintenance forces to perform. And so what we do is that we, we develop a minor project and then we submit it for advertisement to DPAC, and then we go on and we build it. So one of the key features of the minor program is that we can expedite the delivery process. Essentially, our engineers take an issue, a problem that we have, a solution that we need to effect, and then we develop PS&E packages. That includes plan specifications and estimates, and then we send it out for procurement of a contractor to deliver that project. Usually, our projects are not complex in nature, so we can streamline that process. It's we do everything in-house, from scoping it to preparing the plans to building it. So pretty much it's a turnkey process, the one that we implement within the minor B branch. So our funding actually comes from the CHAP program. And so on an annual basis, what Caltrans does is that it provides a list of projects, minor projects, to the California Transportation Commission for approval. And it goes along with our larger CHAP program. Now, once we get approval of that minor program, then Caltrans divides up that funding allocation through all the 12 districts. And here's the formula that Caltrans headquarters uses. And this is where you start seeing the role that the minor business community plays, which is a very important one. So 50% of the funding gets allocated based on inventory of lane miles that we have. Now, we're competing with larger districts in this respect. And there's nothing that District 11 can do to change the facts on the ground. We're competing with District 7, District 4, and to some extent with District 8. 25% of the funding is based on performance. Now, this is one aspect where District 11 excels in. We do really, really well in delivering projects. And then the remaining 25% is based on small business participation. And District 11 has a very active small business community that help us meet those goals and increase the allocation of funding that is allocated to District 11. Alex, can I have this on the next slide, please? So the slide on the screen shows the annual allocation for the minor B projects. And as you can see, for District 11, there has been a big jump in the last fiscal year. We basically double the allocation for our district. We went from about $15 million to almost $30 million. That was one of the reasons why District 11 felt that there was a need to create a second minor B branch within the district. So our district now has the previous minor B branch, and now there is a second one, the minor B1 branch, to deliver on this expanded program for the district. Alex, could I have the next slide, please? Now, this is the raw data, the actual numbers that generated the previous slide. Well, one thing that is noteworthy here is that the total allocations for the minor B programs across the state actually went from $150 million for that through fiscal year 1920. But now in 2021, it went to $250 million, which means these programs are expanding. Another aspect that is important for District 11, where we score very, very high, is our support ratio. Statewide, the support ratio is between 40% to 150%. Now, the 40% is from District 11. So District 11 does really, really well in maintaining the support costs low. And one of the things that you can see in the last column for the fiscal year 2021 is the fact that we actually came on top. We received the largest allocation for the minor B program. And I think that this is associated with the success in the delivery of the program in District 11, as well as the participation of the small business community, as you will see in some of the slides that are coming up next in my presentation. Can we move to the next slide? Thank you. So how do we accomplish this? There are various modalities that we use to deliver the minor B program. So one of those is our minor B projects. This is where we develop PS&E package, send them to DPAT, get an executed contract, and then we go out and do the contract administration of this project. Second modality is district director's orders, and these are DDOs. These are emergency contracts that have a district director delegated authority to approve them on an as-needed basis. So whenever we identify an emergency situation that we feel qualifies for an emergency project, then what we do is we prepare district director's order and send it to our district directors for signature, and then after that we go and procure the services from a small business contractor. So now the limit for minor Bs and district director's order is $333,000. This capital limit gets adjusted from year to year, and it's mostly associated with inflation and the cost of materials, cost of labor that increases over time. So it does get adjusted, but currently it is $333,000. Another program, delivery program that we have within the minor B branch is director's orders, and these are emergency contracts that go beyond the capital limit that we have for minor B projects. These projects are funded through the headquarters CHOP program, but the support cost comes from that initial allocation that we get for the minor B program. We do in this district a lot of DO projects. Fourth item in the HMS program, and this is for lands and buildings. Now, this is an annual allocation that we receive for maintaining our buildings and facilities. This budget usually goes to maintaining our maintenance stations, and we have 19 of those in District 11, with 16 maintenance stations in San Diego County, and 3 maintenance stations in Imperial County. The last item in this slide is other programs. Now, we don't own the funding for these other programs, but what happens is that the minor program has this built-in feature where we can expedite things, the delivery process, the development of plans and specifications, because we do everything internally. So what happens is programs such as the HM2 program, which is for payments, the HM3 for bridges, lately the HM252 for drainage. These are very, very important programs that would come to maintenance to see if we can assist in the delivery of some of these projects. So with that, could I go to the next slide, please? Now, this is where we start seeing the participation of the small business community with our projects. This slide has 2 tables. One is for the last fiscal year, and it shows the projects that were delivered by the minors program. And basically, we deliver 117 projects for just over $61 million. Now, the rows in yellow represent the minor B program on its own, but as you can see, there are other programs where the minor B branch is delivering some of these projects. So we have HM2, we have 1 HM2, 13 HM251, which is for drainages, and so on. And at the bottom, we have headquarter emergency projects, and then CHOP projects. And so the minor program for the last fiscal year delivered 90 projects for a total of just over $24 million. Now, one point to note here, that this is capital expenditure. On a previous slide, you have seen that the allocation was approximately $30 million for the last fiscal year, and that's because those $30 million also includes support costs. But in terms of capital delivery, it was 90 projects with over $24 million. Now, the table on the right side shows what we have programmed for the fiscal year 21-22. And one of the things here is that you're going to see that we start out with a lot of minor B projects. And then what happens is the DDOs, or district director orders, is actually a subset of our minor B allocation. So what happens is when there is an emergency project, what we do is we kind of reprogram one of our minor B projects and push it to the next fiscal year, because we need to free up the funding for the minor B DDO project. Obviously, the minor DDO, being an emergency contract, has a higher priority for our district to deliver. So how does it look for our current fiscal year? Well, we have planned 99 projects for a total of over $58 million. Now, this is subject to increase, because what happens is in what remains of the year, we could have emergency situations where the headquarters CHOP program would kick in and provide the funding for us to deliver those emergencies. And then we have the CHOP 130, and just in a nutshell, but the CHOP 30 is these are CHOP projects that are funded by headquarters. They are not necessarily emergencies, but they do represent improvements, permanent improvements that we need to do right away. One example of those is, for example, is the encampments, where we have to go and clean up areas under bridges. And so those are considered permanent improvements. The headquarters, the CHOP The CHAP 130 program from headquarters will provide the funding, and then we would deliver those projects. So that's how it looks for the 21-22 fiscal year. And this, like I said, it's really subject to increase as we pick up more funding from other programs. One important thing before I change the slide, notice here, these projects were all delivered by small businesses, 100% delivered by small business contractors. This is great. This is the aspect that makes District 11 very, very distinct from other districts. The fact that we can deliver this program utilizing small businesses. Can I get this next one? So what are some of District 11 minor program goals? Well, we want to continue addressing issues that we have in support of the state highway system. We want to implement, as we have been doing in the past, minor B-size emergency projects or regular minor B projects to support operations of our state highway system. And we want to maximize, to the extent possible, as we have been doing in the past, participation of small businesses. The department's goal in general across the state is 25%. Now, here in District 11, we're actually using 100% more small businesses to deliver our program. I'm sorry, next slide, please. I'm running out of time here. Okay, so if you are a small business owner, or if you work for a small business company, how do you get to participate in this process? Well, there are two major categories that I want to cover in this presentation. One is our standard minor B projects, where we deliver PS&E, and then you can participate by visiting the DPAP website. This is actually, this email address here is the Caltrans DPAP portal, where you can go and look for Caltrans projects. There's a lot of information in this website, and if you have any questions, you can reach out to us. We'll be more than glad to provide further assistance when it comes to the minor B project. Now, for emergency projects, okay, you could send us an email with information about your company. Include the following: the company name, company address, contact name, the email of that contact, and the phone number. The license number, the license classification, whether you're general contractor, Class A, Class B, or if you hold any specialty licenses for the kind of work that you do or that your company does. We also need the DIR number, the Department of Industrial Relations number, the small business certification number, and a brief description of the services you provide. You might be a drainage contractor, you might be a paving contractor, metal beam gabriel contractor, fencing contractor. So just include a brief description, and what we will do is we will add your company profile into our database, and whenever there is an emergency contract, we will send an invitation for you to submit a proposal, for performing the work. Could I have the next slide, please? Actually, it's just questions, and I don't know, Alex, if I have time to answer any questions, but that would end my participation.
Thank you so much, Julio. I currently don't have any questions for you specifically. Thank you so much for your presentation. That was a great overview of the Minor B program.
Thank you.
Okay, so I would like to introduce our next presenter. We have Monica Corleco, who is our Labor Compliance Manager here at Caltrans District 11, to go over labor compliance and contractor obligations. Welcome, Monica.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, let me just adjust my video here. Thank you very much. Okay. Yes, once again, I'm Monica Corleco, Labor Compliance Manager for District 11. And you heard Margie Perez and already nervous. and Julio Reyes talk about different types of contracts that we deliver. And one thing that they're all going to have in common is that there's going to be labor compliance, labor laws that you're going to have to follow. So now I'm just going to go over some basic information regarding labor compliance. If you can go to the next slide. This is a very short introduction to some of the things that you're going to have to do or be aware of as a contractor who wants to work either with Caltrans and or any public agency. So I'm going to concentrate on four things today. Number one, register with the Department of Industrial Relations. You just heard Julio Reyes mention that's one of the things that they're going to need for you if you're interested in sending information for minor B work. You're going to have to follow apprenticeship requirements. You're going to pay prevailing wages. You're going to have to maintain and submit certified payrolls. And we're going to briefly talk about each one. So let's start with the first topic, register with the Department of Industrial Relations. We'll move on to the next slide. Thank you. So if you want to bid or work on a public works project, you need to register with the Department of Industrial Relations, and they need to give you their public works contractor registration number. You have to pay a fee, about $400 each year. You can register each year, or you can pay 3 years at a time. It's very important, if you are not aware of what this is that you go to the Department of Industrial Relations website and you read about it. It's very easy to register. I think you just fill out the information online and you can pay everything online. I think you can register and pay and get that done fairly quickly. But it's important that you have that registration when you're going to submit a bid. You don't want to jeopardize winning a bid if you don't have the registration number. You also have to be in compliance throughout the life of the project. It's very important that you keep your registration valid. Otherwise, everybody from the hiring contractor, the contractor that hired you, to the awarding body, in this case, Caltrans, could get in trouble for not for hiring a contractor and allowing a contractor to work on a public works project. So this is very important. And once again, it's very easy to register with the Department of Industrial Relations. Okay, the next topic, what are we going to concentrate on? We'll move on to the next slide. Once you're registered, you want to bid, the other thing that you're going to have to do, this is very important, is follow apprenticeship requirements. So if you are involved in a contract of $30,000 or more, and when I say involved, it's not that you got a contract of $30,000 or more, is that you are participating in a contract that has a value of $30,000 or more. So if the prime contractor's contract is $30,000 or more and your contract is only $10,000, you still have to follow these requirements, unless you meet other exceptions, but we won't go into those right now. I just want to make sure, I wanted to make that distinction because a lot of contractors think that, oh, you know, my contract is not $30,000, so I don't have to abide by those rules. So that's not correct. So the first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to send contract award information regarding each craft to the apprenticeship committee or the school in your geographic area. So basically you're announcing to them that you're going to participate in a public works project. The next step that you're going to take is that before you step foot on that public works project, you're actually going to request apprentices. And you would do that by sending form Division of Standards, apprenticeship standards for 142 or something equivalent. You don't have to use those forms. And you can, if you're curious, if you don't know what they look like, you can always Google any of the forms here. Division of Apprenticeship Standards, that's what the DAS stands for. So if you are not familiar with the apprenticeship requirements, or if you think, you know, I've never had to use apprentices, I just hire, you know, my family or things of that nature. Well, it doesn't work that way on a public works project. You do have to follow the apprenticeship requirements. So just keep that in mind. A lot of contractors who are new to public work sometimes get in trouble for not following these regulations. The other thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to pay a training fund contribution, which is part of the prevailing wage rate. You have to pay that either to the apprenticeship committee, either the apprenticeship school, or to the California Apprenticeship Council. Now, what is that? That's basically a portion of the prevailing wage is set aside to help out the schools. And usually that amount is anywhere from 50 cents per hour to about $1.50 per hour. I don't think I've seen it above $1.50. And the next thing, if you're requesting your apprentices, you've sent your notices to the committees, then you should you're doing everything you can to meet your ratio. The rule of thumb is 1 to 5, 1 apprentice hour to 5 journeyman hours. That's the general rule of thumb in relation to the required ratios. But really, you have to look at the craft. You have to look at the craft and see what the craft ratio is for the apprentices. Sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes it's a little bit less, sometimes it's not hours, but people hours, one apprentice for every 5 journeymen, so something like that. It's a little bit different. So this is very important. This has been around forever, and it's becoming more and more important as some of our journey people are retiring. We need to train the next generation. So this is why these regulations are in place. So we'll move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so the bread and butter of public works and labor law is payment of prevailing wages. I think everybody's probably heard that term, prevailing wages. And most of you probably associate with prevailing wages with union rates, and that's correct. However, just you should be aware that awarding bodies do not enforce the union rates. They enforce the rates that are adopted either by the Department of Industrial Relations on the state side or adopted by the United States Secretary of Labor on the federal side. So they look very similar to the union rates. Basically, what these two agencies do, they adopt the rates that are prevailing in the general geographic area. And the rates that are prevailing are those that are the union rates. So there's pros and cons whether you're a union contractor or not, because the rates that are adopted look very similar to the union rates, but they are not adopted in their entirety. So sometimes it's easier when you're a union contractor coming into a public works project because you're paying similar, but then there's some nuances that you need to be aware of. And if you're a private contractor, most likely you're going to have to pay a little bit more than what you're accustomed to. And you're going to have to follow those apprenticeship requirements and make sure that you route some of that. Like, for example, what I just mentioned regarding the apprenticeship contribution, you're going to have to be aware of those things. Even if you do not hire, for example, an apprentice, you still have to pay those apprenticeship contributions because basically you're following the prevailing wage laws. So, okay, we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, just a couple more things regarding the payment of prevailing wages. Contractors must pay employees based on the type of work performed, not union affiliation or rates the employees are accustomed to pay. Contractors should be familiar with the scope and rates of each prevailing wage determination. So this is very, very important that you don't come into a public works project not knowing what the prevailing wages are, where to go look for them, or even know what the scope of work is. It's very important that you do become familiar with this. One thing I didn't say is the information that I'm providing to you is probably no more than 15 minutes. But there are, if you were to take a class for contractor, that would be an all 8-hour class. So I'm just giving you the very short high-level version of this. So it's very important that you become familiar with what prevailing wages are and how they will affect your bottom line. Okay, other things to remember regarding prevailing wages, for example, overtime must be paid for all hours worked over 8 hours in a day and 40 hours in a week. 8 hours in a day is the California law, which is more stringent than the federal law that only requires payment of overtime once you've surpassed a 40-hour limit. Remember, depending on how our funding is, we may have to look at both laws, federal and state, and always apply the more stringent. In this case, when it comes to overtime, 8 hours in a day is stricter. So this is something to keep in mind for contractors that perhaps are used to working only with federal agencies. In a federal enclave, you're only, in that case, you're only enforcing federal law. But with an agency like Caltrans, who is a state agency, but also gets federal funding, depending on the contract, we will have to look at both laws, federal and state. So 8 hours in the day is always the most important. And for those of you that are used to working in private industry a little bit more, once again, you should become familiar with the prevailing wages. They're equivalent to like rate sheets. That's the best way to kind of look at them. And some of them, depending on the classification, may require you to pay premium rates to employees when they work on Saturday and Sunday, even if they didn't work Monday through Friday. Okay, so that's why it's important for you to pay attention to those, what the prevailing wages say for your craft or classification. Okay, and the last thing you're going to have to do on an ongoing basis, we'll move on to the next slide. You're going to have to maintain and submit certified payroll. Okay, so you're either going to have to submit certified payroll on a weekly basis or as stipulated on your contracts. In Caltrans, for major construction projects, we require you to submit payroll on a weekly basis. My understanding for minor B contracts, I believe you submit your payroll with the invoice, so it may be a little different. And when you submit that payroll, we call that payroll certified payroll. The reason we call it certified is because you should send an additional statement, a statement of compliance with that payroll signed under penalty of perjury, indicating that the information on that payroll is true and correct. So that's why, that's what makes the payroll certified. It's special payroll, not just any regular payroll. You may be required to submit source documents to validate the information on the payroll. Yes, you've submitted a statement of compliance stating that everything's true and correct, but we want to take it a little bit further and sometimes request source documents such as wage statements, let's see, canceled checks, things of that nature to validate that payroll. For the most part, you normally would send the payroll hard copy format or paper format or PDF in this electronic age. So you may be required to submit the payroll in that way, but we're moving a little bit more into the web-based payroll management system. All the major construction projects, all of the ones that are above these minor B threshold of $333,000 are using a web-based payroll system called LCP Tracker. So just keep that in mind that eventually all of Caltrans will move to that web-based payroll system. And the other thing I want to let you know, for those contractors that are already used to working on public works projects and are already submitting payroll, that what I want to let you know is that when you are working on a Caltrans project, you do not need to submit payroll to the DIR, to the Department of Industrial Relations. Our contractors are exempt from having to submit the payroll over to the DIR. So you can continue to do so if you wish, but I just thought I'd let you know that to save you a little bit of a step. You still have to send it to the awarding body, but you do not have to send it to DIR. And I believe we have our last slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so just kind of recapping what we talked about and just kind of give you a little overview on registering with the Department of Industrial Relations, their Public Works Contractor Registration Number, or PWCR. Advises that you have to follow apprenticeship requirements, pay prevailing wages, and submit and maintain certified payroll. Now, the outline of the 4 items here, the first 4 items that you see here, I actually got them directly from the Department of Industrial Relations website. So if you were to go to the DIR website under Public Works, you're going to see these same subjects. So if after this meeting you want to know a little bit more, didn't understand what I said, you can certainly go to that website right now after the procurement fair and start reviewing some of that stuff. Department of Industrial Relations, Public Works, and it would be under contractor obligations or requirements. And the last thing I want to say, this is very quick and brief presentation. There's a lot more to labor compliance on public works projects, so I would encourage you to take training whenever possible. Take it from different awarding bodies. Caltrans does have training for contractors. The next training coming up is going to be sometime in the first quarter of next year. We don't have any training this year. And the beauty of everything right now, of course, is that it is virtual. So you can participate. And there's a lot of other awarding bodies that also provide labor compliance training. So it's a good idea to go and listen to different agencies. The information or the labor law is the same. But you get different information from different agencies that kind of help you look at the bigger picture, get the understanding overall. I know the Department of Industrial Relations, in conjunction with the Center for Contract Compliance, also has training for contractors on an ongoing basis. And I believe they have a couple of sessions still coming up this year in November. So that would be, you can either find that training on the DIR website or the Center for Contract Compliance here in Southern California. And that ends my presentation. You have my information there. And if it went too fast, don't worry, they're going to give you guys the presentation as they've indicated in the chat. If you have any questions, I'm here. If not.
Thank you, Monica. I do have a couple questions that came up in the chat. So the first one is there an apprenticeship committee for drone pilots?
I haven't seen that, but what I would suggest is that you go to the Division of Apprenticeship Standards website, das.ca.gov, and you can look in there for the various approved apprenticeship committees that are around. So yeah, das.ca.gov is where you should see where the schools are located and so forth. Good question. Maybe there will be in the future. I'm not aware of that. Yeah.
And Maysel dropped the link in the chat box for everyone. And then one more question. I'm not sure if this would be a question for Julio or for you, Monica, but for Caltrans contracts, construction and others, are environmental compliance services usually a part of each individual project, or will Caltrans pull from their on-call contracts?
That's definitely an engineering question. I know that environmental compliance is very important, but maybe, I don't know if you have one of the other engineers online, they could probably provide information. Mm-hmm.
Okay. If not, we can definitely follow up with that question at a later time, and we'll go ahead and send that response to you. Thank you so much, Monica, for your presentation. We really appreciate it. Okay, so let's go ahead and move to our next presentation. I'm going to hand the floor back to Maysel. She's going to go over navigating Contractors Corner, which is where you can go in to find all these major construction opportunities. Welcome back, Maysel. Let me move you to the stage.
And if you can just give me the presenter role, Alex, and then I will go ahead and get started. Perfect, thank you. Well, thank you all of the panelists that provided really beneficial information. So I'm going to kind of switch gears and help you navigate through Contractors Corner. So where do you find these opportunities after getting certified? And one of those places is Contractors Corner. On this slide is the direct link to Contractors Corner, but you can also search on a Google engine, type in Caltrans Contractors Corner, and it'll be the first link that populates. So Caltrans has an electronic bidding process created to provide businesses like you some flexibility. The digital ID for project bids can be distributed across multiple or several machines. So you'll be able to submit your bids or projects from any location of your choosing. Contractors Corner gives you a wide variety of resources, including major construction projects. FYI, all projects are advertised for 3 to 7 weeks, and bids can be submitted and resubmitted at any time prior to the bid opening. So let me walk you through several tabs and links through Contractors Corner. I'm not going to be able to go through everything, but I would be highlighting a few key points that is definitely worth paying attention to. So on the first tab of the Contractors Corner link, under the General Information tab, you have access to a lot of great information, including the 2018 standard plans and standard specifications that can be found under the Construction Contract Standards link. If you click the Business Enterprise Programs, as highlighted on the slide, DBE, DVB, and SBE link, you'll be directed to the Office of Civil Rights website, where you can find out more information about the small business and DBE certification, since the Office of Civil Rights does certify for that certification. Advertisements advertised contracts under the $333,000 threshold, also known as minor B projects, which Julio he presented for you all today, can be accessed through that link, as well as architectural and engineering contracts can be accessed through the last two highlighted links below, or excuse me, on the screen. So now going back to Contractors Corner under the Advertisement tab, you have access to resources such as the advertised projects. I believe they removed the 12-month advertising schedule, but there is now a 24-month advertising schedule, and various search engines where you can search items by items. You can also have an option to look for plan holder lists and opt into a project or project license. When clicking the advertised projects link, let me see if I think it'll show on the next slide. Here, you can get a drop down of advertised projects by selecting a time frame as far back as a prior week. And you can also look ahead and view any projects that are going to come out a week after next or upcoming projects. So once you select your preferred time frame, you'll see a list of projects. This is an older project, but this is what an advertisement looks like. From left to right, top to bottom, I'll point out a few items. So the first highlighted box you see on the screen is the bid ID number. Please note that the first two numbers identify which district the project resides in. So for instance, on this screen, you'll see an 11, and that means it falls into District 11, which is San Diego and Payroll County. To the right of that, you'll have access to the project plans and any project-specific information that the bidders need to know under Notice to Bidders and Special Provisions. You will also want to check out those two links before opting into a project. The bid opening date is an imperative note date, as this date is when all the submitted bids will be opened. Therefore, all bids must be submitted before this date. Right below the bid opening date is the estimated cost of the project. And then just after the project description, you can find which licenses are required for that said project. Right below that, you can find the projected number of working days, the goal for the project when applicable, and then you can opt in for the project. You can advertise for help if you're a prime or respond to prime advertisements if you're a sub. So this is definitely a great opportunity to network or definitely get resources to who is looking at the project and how you can potentially get on their team. But we'll find out more with our primes later to see best practices for their companies. Under the bidding tab, you'll have all the bidding resources in one place. You can access the teleconference and webcast information for the live bid openings, the calendar of upcoming bid openings, and find guides to navigating the electronic bidding process, amongst other things. Under the awards tab, you can find or check award statuses on contracts, view awarded contracts, and search past bid results. In the final tab under cost data, you can view the crude oil price index which is updated monthly, and can access the equipment rental rates and labor surcharge link that can lead you to equipment rental rate calculator and frequently asked questions. So that was a brief overview of Contractors Corner. Do we have any questions, Alex?
No questions in the chat or the Q&A, Maisel. Thank you so much.
Perfect. All right. So let's go ahead and switch gears. I wanted to take this time to introduce our Meet the Construction Primes. And we'll give you back the presenter rights, Alex. Today we have the pleasure of hearing from Hazard Construction, Granite Construction, and Skanska USA Civil. So welcome everyone. We have Jason, Bobby, and Mike.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
And then
good morning.
All right, so once Bobby hits the stage, I will each give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and kind of describe your role with the company, just so everyone knows and has an idea of who they're seeing today. So let's go ahead and start with you, Mike, since you're at the top of the screen.
Well, I hope you can hear me because my computer just behaved poorly. Can you maybe skip just for a second? Let me try to get.
Sure. So lucky you, Jason, you can go first.
Get to jump right in. Jason Mordhorst, I'm the president of Hazard Construction Company.
And then Bobby, if you want to introduce yourself and describe your role with the company.
Sure. Bobby Shotcom. I'm with Granite Construction. I deal with the alternative procurement process, so that's where I spend most of my time.
All right, thank you. And then Mike.
Yeah, we're back in action. Sorry about that. Yes, my name is Mike Spain. I'm with Skanska USA Civil, Vice President of Operations, working here in the Southern California market primarily.
Okay, perfect. So we all know that you are all general contractors, but if you want to describe your company, just to give everyone an idea, see if there's any specialties or exactly what is Hazard Construction or Granite or Skanska. Let's start with you, Mike, since you were the last one to speak.
Yeah, well, we'll keep the focus on the civil portion. I mean, Skanska is an international company that has lots of divisions in both building and civil, but for purposes of this conversation, we work in the Southern California and the whole West region. We're a highway contractor, transit, rail, subway. So we work with all the different agencies. We do a lot of work with Caltrans, LA Metro, and others. So our primary business is the civil infrastructure business here in Southern California.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. All right, Jason, do you want to describe Hazard Construction a little bit?
Yeah, so Hazard Construction started in 1926, so it's our 95th year anniversary. We're the small potatoes of this group compared to the other two panelists that are here. We work only down in Southern California, so District 8, District 11, and District 12. Primarily a heavy highway general contractor. Do a lot of Caltrans work. We also work for the County of San Diego, City of San Diego, and pretty much all the airports here in town. So we specialize in asphalt paving, structural concrete, excavation, a lot of traffic control, which you've all been seeing on the freeways.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, Bobby, let's hear about Granite.
Sure. So Granite is also heavy civil contractor. They have been in business for about 100 years. I think this year it's our 100th anniversary. And we build pretty much anything from driveways to highways. There's nothing too small, nothing too large. We'll look at everything. As far as the overall structure, there's 5 local regions. I'm part of the South Coast region, which covers the San Diego area as well as Orange County and LA. So that's the region that will deal with the District 11 Caltrans work. We work for all the local agencies, Sandac, Caltrans, just to name a few. And yeah, that's about it.
All right, thank you, Bobby. So since your 3 companies seem to be long-standing companies, so how does a small business become a sub on a project with you all? Let's switch things up and let's start with you, Bobby.
Sure. So we use the smart bid system. That's how we do our outreach initially for each job. And then that's kind of been how we connect with a lot of businesses. The other approach is what you showed in that Contractors Corner. People can go see who's the plan holder, who are the primes, and then reach out that way. And we listed Veronica Garcia. She's our estimating coordinator. And she is willing to, if someone wants to reach out to us, she's willing to connect them with the right estimator and let them know initially, are we bidding this job or not? And if we are, who's bidding it? So I think those are the ways. If they register on Smart Bids, and then they also look at who's the plan holder and then reach out to Veronica, we should be able to put people in contact with the estimators for each project.
All right, perfect. Well, I hope everyone's taking notes. He just name dropped someone, so you want to write down Veronica for Granite Construction. All right, let's go to you, Mike. How does the sub become a sub on your projects?
Very, very similar process that just was described, obviously attending events like this. We use a system called Building Connected. Is our internal database where we share information. So really let's just talk about 2 major buckets. You have a Caltrans project. The plan specifications are available through Caltrans and or through ourselves, but that information is available. It can be looked up and people can submit bids. Our coordinator is Teresa Maxwell. I will share her email address with you later. But Teresa Maxwell would be the individual that would identify which jobs we're bidding and who is the lead estimator. The importance of keeping in touch with Teresa and getting onto the Building Connected database is several of our projects, the documents are not available from the owner. So for instance, some of the alternative procurement projects, the only holder of the documents is ourselves because we're advancing those in the bid process. So those are only available on Building Connected. But outreach programs, watching Contractors Corner, getting your name on the database with Building Connected. I'll like I said, with Teresa Maxwell, I'll provide that information. And that would be the 2 or the 3 main ways to do it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mike. And Jason, you mentioned that you're the smaller of the 3 companies. Is there a different process, or is it similar to be a sub with Hazard Construction?
Very similar process. We use a program called Bid Mail. We also at our website, www.hazardconstruction.com, there is a subcontractor link that will tie up to an FTP site. So if you email that, then you'll get an access code to be able to access plans that, similar to Mike, that may or may not be on the Caltrans website or another public agency website. So we don't have a formal pre-qualification process. Some general contractors do. We kind of rely on your bonding company to go through the pre-qualification process. So any new subcontractor, DBE, DBBE, or small business, first time they work for us, they will be bonded And that's just an extra assurance for general contractors to make sure that an independent third party has verified your capabilities and your financials to be able to go out and contract work with us.
Thank you, Jason. I'm glad that you actually mentioned that pre-qualification requirement, because that actually leads to my next question. Granite and Skanska being the larger of the three companies, is there any pre-qualification requirements with your companies? Whoever wants to go first can go.
I'll go. So formally, no. There is not a formal process that you go through to be pre-qualified to propose on projects with Skanska. Now, there are requirements, but those requirements, that you have a contractor's license, that you have a business license, and all those sorts of circumstances. But there is not a formal process. If you have not proposed on one of our projects and you have not given bids on any of our projects, I recommend you reach out way ahead of time and kind of talk through that process with the estimator or Teresa, just to make sure you check all the boxes. Like I said, there's not a formal process, but it's good to get that. You don't want to be turning in a proposal the day of a large bid going in and we pass on it because we're not familiar with who you are or what the background is. So.
Thank you, Mike. Let's hear from you, Bobby.
Oh, very similar. We do not have a formal pre-qualification system for subs and vendors. We'll obviously do the basic verification and check the boxes and kind of take it from there. And depending on the dollars, some of them will be bonded, some not. But yeah, very similar.
All right, thank you. Jason, is there anything you wanted to add before we move on to the next question about pre-qualification?
No, just that Contractors Corner is a really good tool to see. There's an opt-in feature that's on there. And generally every general contractor that's bidding on the Caltrans project is advertising, and you can get to see who the name of the estimator is, and their email is usually published with it. So it's a really good resource if you're going to bid a Caltrans job, see who the general contractors are and reach out early. That's the big thing.
Definitely. To the audience, if you heard it from Caltrans and you heard it from the primes to opt into the project, I think you should opt in on a project. So with the three of your companies so heavily involved in government contracting, what are the best practices that you can give to our audience for government contracting in general? Let's start with you, Mike.
Well, I guess the first bit of advice is understand exactly what you're committing to. It can be difficult to navigate the requirements of public works contracts. And to understand what the expectation is. We've talked about a lot of it today with certified payrolls and DIR and prevailing wage. Those are all fundamental aspects that you need to be familiar with. I think the other part that's very important is to understand the expectation of the scope of work that you're proposing on. Doing chain link fence for Caltrans is not the same as doing chain link fence for a housing development or for a target. It's different. I'm not going to say it's better or worse. I'm just going to say it's different. And it's important to understand the rules, the specifications, the plans, and the expectation. So that would be my recommendation.
Great. Thanks, Mike. All right, let's go to you, Jason.
I have to really reiterate that really read and understand the specifications for the type of work that you're getting into. Be very clear on the scope of work that you're tackling. Scope letters help out a lot, not the morning of, but a scope letter a couple days ahead of time that has your inclusions and your exclusions and your understanding of exactly what you're providing a price to. The general contractor helps, because then that estimator can pick up the phone and can ask those questions a couple days ahead. If you're asking questions the morning of the bid on clarifications, on interpretations of specifications, you're not going to get a lot of response out of the estimator. It's just they're trying to close the bid. They're looking for, their pricing, and but negotiation needs to happen ahead of time. Some contractors, like myself, have master subcontract agreements and master vendor agreements. It's good to get a hold of those early and read all of those requirements that are in those agreements, because they're different than Caltrans. We don't just say, hey, follow Caltrans. We have our own set of rules that are different for each general contractor. You can get a hold of those early, and those can be part of your inclusions and exclusions, things that you bring up in your scope letter. So biggest thing is ask questions. Most estimators, if you do it early enough, are kind enough and will answer your questions and kind of guide you along, because we all strive to increase our small business DBE and DDB participations on every project.
That's really great advice. Thank you, Jason. Is there anything you wanted to add, Bobby, for Granite?
No, I think that was very well said by both Mike and Jason. Knowing your contract, it's a big deal. And also kind of knowing the expectations, like Mike is saying, that a lot of times people know the scope, they just don't know necessarily what that specific owner is asking for or exactly wants. And communicating is a big part of that with the estimator. A lot of our estimators are more than willing to help. So they can send you spec sections so you don't have to go through the entire document. Sometimes they're 1,000 pages, right? So we can help out with all that stuff. If you guys reach out early and kind of establish a communication line, we can definitely help out.
Great, great. So that was all really great advice for a government contractor from the three of you. For Caltrans specifically, because you all have, based on your experience, what advice can you give for specifically to Caltrans projects? We can start with you, Jason.
Be very good at your paperwork. There's a lot of timing requirements on things as far as submittals go prior to you being on site. General contractors will give you plenty of notice on this thing, but if you miss a window for a general contractor, you can delay the contract, not just for the general contractor, but the entire contract. So really bone up on your paperwork. It's tough as a small business because you're trying to do a lot of different things with a lot of different hats, right? The accountant, the CFO, the foreman, the superintendent, what have you. So you got to be really good at organization, communication, and paperwork.
All right. Thank you, Jason. How about you, Mike? Any best tips for Caltrans specific projects? Oh, I can't. Oh, okay, let's go to Bobby and give you some time.
So yeah, the paperwork portion is a big deal. It needs to happen to start the work, but also I would say that, you know, knowing some of the work restrictions, right? Like there's always access issues with these jobs. You know, how much room are you going to get? What are the working hours? Are you expected to work on the weekends, nights, and such? Those are good things to kind of pay attention to when you get into these highway contracts. And it's small details, but it makes a difference. So.
Definitely. I think the consistent trend we're hearing is you need to pay attention to almost everything and every little line. And if you have questions, ask. It's better to ask than to assume. Let's test your mic, Mike. No? Well, okay. Let's go ahead and jump into the last and final question, and hopefully Mike will be able to chime in at the end of that. So let's go ahead and start with you, Bobby. What potential opportunities are there with Granite in the near future? Are there any projects that you guys are looking on, might need some subs on?
Yeah, sure. So one of your presenters went over the list of projects within District 11 that are going to come out over the next quarters. So more than likely, we'll pursue all of those. So that's a good start. And then also, if you register on Smart Bids, whatever else we pursue, you'll get a notification for your scope. So.
All right, perfect. So everyone in the audience, once we submit or provide this list of projects that Margie presented earlier, then it looks like all of you should be contacting Granite Construction. So how about you, Jason? Is there any upcoming opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, that list that Margie presented is a great list, and that's updated, you know, probably monthly, if not quarterly. And you can probably ask for it multiple times from the Small Business Liaison Committee. So you can kind of get an idea a little bit further out. But over the next 18 months, you know, Margie presented almost $400 million worth of contracts that are coming out down here in District 11, which are local. There's another 200 million plus that we'll be looking at for public agencies. And to reiterate, they all have higher goals. You know, DBE goals now are 22% for Caltrans, 5% DVBEs for Caltrans, and 25% minimum small business. Those are all minimums, by the way. So the idea for all of us general contractors is to get those numbers up as high as possible, utilizing good subcontractors and good vendors. One of the questions that was on the Q&A there just a second ago was about, do we bid before or after if we're a vendor? For a company like ours, if we don't get a bid from you before the close of the bid, we won't even look at it afterwards. We don't do buyout. If you help us get a project with Caltrans, you will get the contract or you will get the purchase order from that, and not after the fact.
Definitely. And I'm glad that you mentioned certification, Jason. So if you are certified and you're looking to do business with these companies, or you're not certified, we highly encourage you to get certified first, especially if you're looking at Caltrans projects. Jason mentioned that we have a small business, a DVBE goal, and a DBE goal. So if you are eligible for all those 3 certifications, definitely do it, because it depends on the funding of the project, which goal will be implemented. So
one quick thing to add about
sure.
that. It's not just checking the box to get certified. It's the work codes and the NACE codes that you get certified for allows you to do that work. So if you're a fencing subcontractor that was brought up before, you have to have that specific code in order for the general contractor to get credit or use of that DBE. We can still use you as a subcontractor. You just won't get the credit for it if you don't have those codes.
Definitely great tip, Jason, because I think a lot of us out there did not know that. So thank you for that, Mike. I'm almost scared to ask.
No, I'm back. I don't know. You guys are just so powerful. It's overloaded my computer somehow. But anyway, yeah, it is, you know, really not much to repeat what Jason and Bobby said. I mean, we do tend to bid the larger projects. And I guess I would also encourage keeping in touch with Skanska and our procurement group. We have lots of projects that go out to procurement that are not necessarily advertised by the public agency. Some of our projects are design build, and the procurement strings out over a long period of time. And some of the CMGC projects as well string out over a long period of time. And those bid documents are not available publicly. They're available to you, but they're not going to just find them on an internet search. They're not going to be there. So always keep in touch, kind of track those projects. And as Jason mentioned, that the requirements are going up, and they're going up with Caltrans and LA Metro and everywhere else as well. So there'll be a lot of people looking for you. So make yourself available.
Are we expecting Skanska, like the other 2 companies, to be bidding on the upcoming projects Margie presented?
We will be bidding on a number of them, yes, but not probably at the level that Jason and Bobby would be. But we will absolutely be bidding some of those projects.
So
you'll see us, if we're a plan holder, you'll see it on Contractors Corner, or if you're on our Building Connected database, you'll be notified. Yeah.
Oh. So to emphasize, everyone definitely want to get on Contractors Corner and see which projects our primes are going to be bidding on. You want to opt in, and you definitely want to reach out to them if you see that they are looking at that potential project. So thank you all for answering my questions. I'd like to open up the floor to the audience to see if they have any specific questions for any of our panelists. Alex, do we have any questions?
Yes, we have quite a few questions actually. So
lucky you guys.
The first question we have is, could you please clarify if civil engineering professional services for construction management will need bonding?
Is that
I'll jump in there because I think I mentioned the bonding part of it. Usually professional services don't come with a bond. They have different contractual relationships than a pure contractor to subcontractor relationship.
All right, thank you, Jason. Do you have anything to add to that, Mike?
No.
Okay. Okay,
Okay, next question. What about vendor supplies? How do we get in contact with your subs? Is there a vendor list we can get on?
There's a vendor, we put out for procurement for the materials that we're purchasing directly. We do not, that I can recall, have a listing of subs that you should contact for material supply. So it's a good question. There's probably a gap there for suppliers, material suppliers, how to know what subs are bidding on projects. I guess all I could suggest is that you go to outreach events and try to connect with the people at those meetings. We don't know who the subs are going to be prior to the bid time.
Thank you, Mike. Is there any vendor list that Granite or Hazard has that you want to add to that? No.
Yeah, a vendor list isn't something that's published. Once again, it's that opt-in. Both the general contractors opt in as, hey, I'm going to bid this prime, but subcontractors that are intending to submit prices are there. And you can do the same outreach to most of those subcontractors as you would do to a general contractor directly. For instance, if you're looking to sell erosion control products, we don't do a lot of installation of erosion control products. We use companies that do erosion control. So you wouldn't necessarily want to provide your price to me because I'm just going to look for a subcontractor to install it for us.
So is it safe to say if you are looking at a bid and a sub is certified and they see there is potential need for their products, they can provide a quote at that time for that specific project?
Yeah, you can provide a quote at any time, just preferably before noon for a 2 o'clock bid at the latest.
And
Yeah,
be early. Okay, definitely. Did you want to add to that, Bobby?
Oh, no.
Okay. All right, perfect. Alex, is there any other questions the panelists can answer for you?
Yes. How to know if primes are looking for part-time subs?
Part-time subs. I'm assuming that's limited scope, in other words, not taking the whole scope on. We try to break it up into packages. With alternative delivery, it's a little bit easier. Sometimes because the segments are released or portions of the project are released at different times. We had a job here in District 11 for Caltrans where we actually used 3 separate landscaping subcontractors project because the duration that the work was released. On hard bid jobs, probably not as common. Alternative delivery, whether it be CMGC, design build, is more common.
Thank
I'm not
you,
sure if that
Mike.
answers the question.
And if it doesn't, whoever asked the question can follow up with the small business team and we can kind of do more research to specify what your question is and try to give you the best response possible. So definitely follow up with the small business team unless anyone else has anything to add.
One thing quickly to add for Caltrans, if it's over a certain percentage or over a certain dollar amount, the subcontractor needs to be listed at bid time. And we can't go out after the fact, get additional subcontractors without being subject to penalties by Caltrans. So once again, get your quotes in ahead of time, and if the scope can get broken up effectively, then it'll happen at that point in time.
Thank you. Alex, is there another question?
Yes. At what point in projects should proposals be submitted for incorporating emerging cost-saving technologies such as construction mapping with drones?
Depends on what kind of project. On a hard bid project, I'm not going to say in all cases, but in almost all cases, that work is done prior to the date of bid for the project and is largely done on the owner's side. So that would be work with Caltrans prior to the project being advertised or prior to the job being bid. It's very difficult to do that after the fact. On some design build, we'll use design build. Design build can be done after potentially after the bid date of the project, because you go into a design phase and innovation and everything after the fact. So it's not too late after a job is bid on a design build job. And then CMGC would need to be done during the pre-construction contract, the CM portion, probably not during the construction phase. So when the project is advertised for the CM proposals would be the time to be talking to the general contractors about that.
All right, is there anything else you wanted to add, Jason or Bobby?
No, that was well said.
Okay, perfect. Alex, is there another question?
Yes. What does your selection process for partnering look like?
Are they referring to, I'm assuming that
How we pick
joint venture?
partnering facilitators? You want to assume that's the question?
They didn't specify, but you can respond to that aspect of it.
Well, I think first of all, some of that is personal. Like what I mean by personal is it's the personal experience of our project manager and the resident engineer for Caltrans, and they may have somebody or some facilitator that they've both had success with and have confidence in, and that would probably lean towards that individual or that organization. There are some facilitators that also have had some history or have a specialty with certain types of challenges. And if the project presents a certain type of challenge or a certain set of circumstances, we may go in that direction and look for a facilitator that's associated with a specific challenge. Those are probably the most where the selection process comes from. Obviously, if one party has if Caltrans has a real strong opinion, we certainly listen to it. We've had really good success with all the facilitators, so I don't look that any of them are not doing a good job. It's more of a specialization for the project specifically. But that's how we do it.
All right, Mike, you're on a roll.
Well, all about that.
Anything you would like to add, Bobby or Jason?
I'll just add quickly, District 11 is kind of unique because they have a new specification that partnering is required for any project that's $1 million or more in 100 days. So there are opportunities on smaller projects to kind of get in with those REs and or those project managers that may not have done $50 million projects before. So build your resume up is a good way. Sometimes if you're a new partnering facilitator, start small with some of those projects identified and get your foot in the door to build that resume so that you can eventually work for Granite and Skanska someday on the $150 million plus jobs.
So that's a really good point, Jason. I didn't even think about that outcome of this, but you're right. That there is a real opportunity for more people to have the opportunity to try it and learn about it and grow their business that way. It's a good point.
Bobby, is there anything you would like to add?
No, that's
All right. Alex, is there another question?
Yes. Do you or your firm engage project management services to keep up with paperwork?
we do not. We do that in-house.
Thank you, Bobby.
The services that we would like traditionally outsource when you talk about construction management would be like a QC/QA program, maybe.
Yes.
That's paperwork that we don't do in-house. We hire firms that do those testings of materials and then submit those reports to Caltrans. But pure like project management day to day, usually employees of the company.
We're the same as well. It's primarily in-house. There's a few exceptions, but it's primarily in-house.
I think that's a great question, just because a lot of people out there don't know if that's internal or if that's something that they subcontract for. So thanks for explaining that.
We see a lot more of that on the owner side, whether it be, I'm just going to use Caltrans and Sandag as an example. There seems to be a considerable amount of outsourcing for some of those roles, and much more popular on the owner side currently.
Thank you, Mike. Alex, is there another question?
Yes, so just a couple more. We have Michael Kane. He tells us he's a retired general building contractor, and now he's a supplier vendor of protective sealers and coatings. It's been approved by Caltrans and it's listed on the approved materials list. He's responded to different bid requests, but he wants to know how he can get his materials in front of project owners and introduce them for approval on a project. Does it involve him including his capability statement in any bid request?
Well, it sounds like the desired outcome is to have this material, these coatings, included in the contract requirements and specifications for the job. If that's the case, that's going to have to be done way in front of where we usually get involved from a procurement perspective. That would probably be a better question for Caltrans. There is a certain amount of alternative delivery that takes place with CMGC and design build, which affords the opportunity for the prime contractors to bring these technologies and these materials forward and consider them for use. So alternative delivery, you can certainly go the avenue of the prime contractor. On the hard bid side, I would recommend that you have to work through the owner side, and I'm not sure if Caltrans has like a innovation group that you contact. I'm not familiar with that.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, Mike. And for Caltrans, I would just suggest who asked this question to submit your capability statement and your description of your item to the small business team, and then we can see if we can get that into the hands of whoever needs to approve a material item or whatever it is. But definitely contact the small business team, and Alex can provide that email, and we'll also provide it at the end of the presentation. Oh, actually, Maria just dropped it in the chat. And Alex, is there another question that we can answer?
Yes, so last one, this one's actually for Bobby, since you name dropped. Are you able to provide Veronica's contact information?
Yeah, sure thing. So it's actually on the presentation underneath questions. I don't know if everyone is able to see that slide. Yeah, so it's veronica.garcia@gcinc.com.
And Maria just dropped it in the chat as well. So if anyone wants to copy all the information in the chat, you can hit file on the top of your screen and then save, and you can save the entire chat just for your references. I think we have time for one more question. If there isn't any, we can, is there any more, Alex?
Are there ever opportunities for business support services?
I'm going to assume that business support service would be like office machines and things of that nature. And yes, I mean, we do use that. We at Skanska, we work in large geographical areas. There's the handiness of the national accounts, but that also doesn't allow us to be working in the community that we're operating in and the projects in. So we use a lot of local business where the project is. So yes, if it's the nature of office machines and that kind of support, we do. Yes.
I would assume, Mike, is that separate from when you bid on like Caltrans or projects?
Yeah,
they would have to contact you directly for that types of products.
We don't usually, or unless it's extremely large, we don't necessarily use a proposal to produce the estimate, but about that time, at the time of award is when those decisions are made. So for sake of this conversation, assume that bid time is a good time to be talking to these prime contractors about that.
Jason or Bobby, is there anything you wanted to speak to in regards to your company for that question?
I mean, we usually handle that stuff locally in-house, but we would look at a proposal if it makes sense. But yeah, the time to do it is about award time. That's when all that stuff gets set up. So
Sometimes the best way to do it is after whoever you find out is the low bidder, find out who the project manager is. Are you talking about an on-site office and those kind of things? Project manager, who's usually different than the estimator, would be responsible for doing a buyout, so to speak, of what they need for their project site.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Jason, Bobby, and Mike. I believe that is all the time we have left for today for questions. If anyone has some follow-up questions or didn't have an opportunity to have their questions asked, definitely reach out to the small business team and we can figure out the response for you and provide your response at a later time. So before we close out today's session, I'd like to invite Maria back to give some final words. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maysel. Thank you to all the district presenters and prime panelists for taking time to present such beneficial information, a wealth of information for everyone. So we hope that's an opportunity for you to gather all those information from the chat box, from the presentation that's going to be sent out to you after our event. So please keep notes, keep the information available to you when you need it. So we hope to catch you this afternoon's session as we focus on our architecture and engineering with a district guest speaker from our A&E division and guest prime panelists from Kimley Horn, Jacobs, Kleinfelder, and AECom. Tomorrow, we will be introducing the district's purchasers and provide their needs list of items they wish to procure for quotes, with quotes from vendors attending the fair. So we will have the pleasure of having our East Region Mountain Cruise. We have our Maintenance Region Resource, El Centro Travelway, Structural Steel Paint, Special Crews and Maintenance Support. We have our Electrical Crew, Chula Vista Yard, Warehouse, Construction Division, and our Kearney Mesa Maintenance Yard. So a lot of folks joining us tomorrow. In the morning session, you will also have the chance to hear from the Transportation Management, this is the afternoon session, Transportation Management Center, Business Services, Design, Engineering, and Corridors, Facilities, Resource Planning, Traffic Operations, and Surveys. And you definitely do not want to miss that, or either of the sessions. So we do encourage you to register. We also have given a 2-minute opportunity for 5 selected certified vendors to pitch in their product, their idea, their service to everyone in attendance. So we want you guys to check that out. This is including our district purchasers as our panelists. We will be dropping the link to register in the chat box here shortly. And please save that and register as soon as you can for tomorrow's events. Once you close out the session, so this is lastly kind of reminder for you, when you close out the session, you will be prompted with our post-event survey. Please take time to fill this out. It will allow us to improve our future events. All resources, as mentioned earlier, will be provided to you along with the recording of the session. So it will be after our event. So hopefully in the next week, you will be receiving that. So if you have any questions in the meantime, please reach us out, small business team here at District 11, d11.smallbusiness@dot.ca.gov. So with that, you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you, everyone.